Chapter 8. Some Slice of Life. Despite Inari having always had difficulty understanding what other people were feeling unless it was made explicitly clear, she still had natural empathy for other people. But it was usually painful for her to experience knowing she suppressed her own feelings, and how uncontrolled she could be if she ever let them out. But while cuddling her husband in bed, she noticed something seemed off about him, like he wasn't feeling calm like he normally is. Inari then asked him, "Is something wrong?" Souzun was trying to keep himself composed even though he felt an intense emotion remembering his first wife Zorda, and it was the day she had died and being the same day as today. Souzun answered his wife Inari, "It's a painful memory that comes to me on this day and each year knowing that my first wife that I loved very much was taken from me and I couldn't be there to protect her or my family. I did everything I could do to provide for my family and love them only for them to be murdered in cold blood. And my son gave his life for the sake of other people. And now I can't tell him how proud I am of the young man he became. And until me and you started dating after you lost the keys of prosperity, I didn't think I would love anyone again, the same way I loved Zora and my family. It's just painless to remember that because I feel like it's unfair to you that I remember these things and feel them when I'm the only person you've ever been married to." Inari squeezed her husband a little tighter. "Even if I can't understand how that feels, I'm always willing to listen to you. You're a great man, and I've given me something I've always wanted, a good husband and a child. So, even if I can't make you feel loved all the time, I'll still do what I know how to do to love you. And I might not always feel loved by you, so I didn't want to place that burden on you to make me feel loved, knowing those fuzzy feelings come and go from time to time. What you do is enough, and I want to stay with you as my husband when we raise our child." Sozin remained silent, cuddling his wife before speaking. "There's also a sense of guilt knowing I've compared you to my first wife, and that you satisfied me much better than her. You've also given me the most intense feelings I've ever felt in my life. It's only natural when you have a beautiful wife like me knowing wanting to use her body while she still can. I also know certain kinds of relations are important to marriage, so I research health websites on how to satisfy a man and apply what I learned to you and took the time to learn your fetishes. I also know talking about fetishes is uncomfortable for a lot of people, so I made sure to do both research and ask you what you're into. I feel like it's because it feels a bit selfish to say how you want it, as if somehow the other person is a toy, even if you don't actually see them that way. I know you don't see me that way and indulged in my fantasies when them being pretty normal and felt pretty good, if I say so myself. I like to indulge in my fantasies with you after our child is born and I'm not so tired from growing a baby inside me. But I don't want to be selfish, so I also want to indulge in your fantasies too, which I'm pretty comfortable with knowing they're pretty normal. However, there are some things I'm not okay with, and I'm sure we, sure spending physical relations with you is great and all, but what I really appreciate about you in our marriage is your stability and being a good husband, because I know that means you'll be a strong foundation for our child. I could say the same thing about you, gorgeous. One of the things I love about you is your maturity and not someone trying to take advantage of a man for his resources. And why would I do that? I already have everything I would want, so it's not like I would depend on being married to a man for resources. So it's all that's left for me to do is genuinely love you without it being colored by needing you to rely on you in the same way a woman with no job or income would. And I personally hate the idea that marriage where the wife isn't allowed to have a job or income outside the house because it makes me wonder if the love is genuine or if she's just acting loving out of self-preservation. because of total dependence on her husband, who could easily economically take advantage of her any time. Because at that point, it's not like us where we're companions for life, but more like a man and his dependent, and not so good for the wife to have no job, as I would lose my mind if I had nothing to do. But it's also a rule I think makes sense to allow for some flexibility, such as paid maternity leave, because it's critically important for the first years of a child's life to form a strong bond with its parents, from the research I've read, because I want to give our child the best chance possible and extend that to the many families that make up our kingdom. So I consulted my economists and leave executors, and it decided to decree businesses can write off paid maternity leave on their taxes and tax less. Because I want to economically encourage family formation with those children growing up to be the future of our civilization. And we can't have a civilization without people. I know. So it's why I fully intend on raising our child the best I can. Thank you for listening to me and just letting me feel my own emotions rather than being judgmental. Like I should from what I learned by reading books on marriage counseling. I'm pretty bad at understanding people on an emotional level compared to the intellectual, so I needed to take some time to practice and learn how to be better relate to people, especially you, my wonderful husband. But even when I reflect on myself, I feel like it's still motivated by a bit of egoism and the kind where I want you to see me as a good person to be with and feels kind of egocentric. And even though I'm following this new religion's rules and precepts, I know in myself that I'm still very motivated how I want to perceived by other people. And because of that, even if what I'm doing is by the standards of the law and tradition are good things, is it really repulsive at its core to the God who instructed me to do these things? Sozen remembered his wife's upbringing because he was there when it happened, and how she was always second to her twin brother in her mother's eyes until he was exiled and passing the crown on to her. And Sozen remembered that his wife always felt like she was her mother's second choice, and was always a backup plan should Father Victor not become the image of Inari and inherit the kingdom. She never received the proper attention a loving mother should have given a child, and simply gave her what she needed to live and quite comfortably, but was emotionally neglected, leading her to suppress her own feelings so no one could hurt her ever again. Sozen could see this bothered his wife very much, and her need to be seen and valued made her feel inferior. So Sozen kissed his wife on the head and said, "He at least knows you're trying." Zenko dating practice. For as long as Zenko knew Sonny Ringtail, Sonny's always looked at her more as a very close female friend who is more than old enough to be his mother. But Zenko and Sonny were lonely now that Sonny graduated from college, without his brother Buck Ringtail able to attend his graduation, and only Zenko and his little sister to attend. He also lost contact with his college friends who were simply associates for his courses, but no one he considered a true friend beyond utility, unlike Zenko. He also felt depressed knowing he didn't have a wife or a girlfriend, and felt like he wasted his time in college after graduating and realizing he had no job and had debt to pay off, and his college knowingly deceiving him into receiving a useless degree while gladly taking his money without refunds. Zenko could see the sadness and asked, "Do you mind if I hold you?" while in a room alone with Sonny seeing him cry. Zenko knew he wasn't truly smiling when he got his degree on the stage and was holding back tears. Sonny then let Zenko hold him even though she was smaller than him and wrapped her arms and seven fluffy golden tails around him. Zenko whispered, "Shh, shh, shh, I'm here for you." Zenko let Sonny cry like this and didn't judge him for crying that the world he knew fell apart in a single day and for being a man. She knew that feeling because she had felt it before when her mother exiled Father Victor whom she loved from her kingdom. Zenko and Sonny stayed like this for a couple of minutes until Sonny couldn't cry more tears with Zenko whispering, "Are you done?" Sunny still held onto Zenko as she stayed silent. Her golden orange, white, and black fur was soft and lush and warm. But something about embracing Zenko at least eased some of Sunny's sadness, as he had enough emotional energy to weakly say, "All my hard work, it was for nothing." Zenko waited a little longer for Sunny to be emotionally stabilized after giving him some space. And then she asked with an open ended tone, "How come you believe your hard work was for nothing?" Sunny answered, "I've wasted 4 important years of my life pursuing a worthless degree only for it to end up with no job, no wife, no girlfriend, and debt while my college kept encouraging me to keep going when I felt like there was something wrong. They hid the fact that my degree was worthless until my graduation year when they quietly removed the degree track and I only found out too late from a classmate and wouldn't do anything about it except watch my college steal my future and money from me." Senko looked furious after hearing her close friend got cheated like that and had a glowing ball of cyan kitsune bai in her right paw hand and asked, "Where do the executives live? Because they deserve to have their fortunes burned to the ground for cheating good people like you, and probably so many others too. If they didn't get their fortunes through honest means, they don't deserve them at all." Sunny tried to calm Zenko down, knowing she felt intense emotions and might actually do what she said she was going to do while making it look convincingly like an accident, but answered honestly, "I don't know where they live." "Well, they're not the least bit Christian if they're going to deceive and manipulate you to enrich themselves while calling themselves a Christian school. They're no Christian school, but members of the cults of Inari with greed like that. Forgive me, but I get emotional with these kinds of things. I don't actually want to hurt people, but I have that reaction knowing sub animals like those people fear poverty more than they fear dying. So I'm the opinion that making them impoverished and homeless with their possessions burned is a better punishment than, say, beating them up or getting them fired. And then to cheat good people like you, while a priest like one of the executives of your college should be grounds to immediately defrock him as a priest and be treated like the devil incarnate, because that's who he really serves when he acts like that. They took an institution of education and learning and turned it into a den of thieves. I might have been a shrine priestess of the cults of Inari and a demon worshipping pagan, but even when I was those things, I would never have even conceived of that level of lying by omission and robbery to enrich myself. There's a special place in hell, right next to the devil himself, for clergy that use their office to enrich themselves and live in luxury while exploiting the goodwill of their flock where their flock lives in poverty." Sunny watched as Zenko's angry rant and breathing slowed down to normal levels as her kitsune bai fizzled out. Sunny asked, "Do you want to get a drink?" Zenko answered, "So long as we know which one of us is driving, I could use a bit of alcohol right now. And I'd like to celebrate you graduating from college, even if you got cheated and with nothing to salvage from it. I know it feels stupid because of the circumstances this happened, but it's better to feel sad with a close friend than be sad alone. And if you'd like to practice dating on me for when you actually meet the Tanuki girl you want to make into your girlfriend, I'm okay with that. Also, I'm paying for the drinks, because you already have enough bills to pay and don't have a job." "All right, I'll drive. Thanks for doing this for me." "It's no big deal with me. Besides, I want what's best for you and I hate seeing you like this. So I want to help you feel better if I can." Sunny waited for Zenko to get dressed before going out, and she was dressed like she was ready for a date. She was lucky she was short and cute, or people might think badly of her having practice date with a 22-year-old while she was more than 800 years old. But she dressed like this because she wanted to help Sunny build up confidence for when he actually goes on a date with a girl of his liking. Zenko then asked Sunny, "You ready?" The two got in Sunny's car and drove to one of their favorite places to eat. It was nothing special or expensive, with Zenko commenting, I know you're just trying to be a good young man and not trying to burn my wallet on expensive food, but I would have happily paid for an expensive meal on a day like today. But still, I've always wondered why there's this feeling people have where the man should pay for everything, despite the fact that women have had jobs now and have had jobs outside the house in this country since the 1950s. So, one of the lessons I want you to learn on our little practice date is that if the girl you're dating has a job and is unwilling to split the bill on the first date, she's probably secretly entitled and isn't worth your time. Another thing is that if she's only kind to you if you have money or asks about money and how much you make on your first date, she's probably a no go and only interested in what you can give her and doesn't actually care about you as a person and is a waste of your time. Then what should I look out for? Look to see if she's authentic and generally happy and stable person. But be careful, because women tend to be better emotional manipulators than men. So it's a good idea to bring some female family members along with you, like your soon to be sister in law Natalia or your sister to cover your blind spots that are common to men. It's also best to share the details of your relationship with the people you trust, like your family, because it's much more difficult to deceive people with multiple perspectives on the same event than it is to deceive a single person. It's why pathological liars try to isolate their victims. And that's why I think cutting off family in a romantic relationship or marriage when you don't have a reason to is a red flag. Just because you romantically love someone doesn't mean you stop loving your family. And if she has a problem with you loving your family like you do, then she can see herself out the door. A good family is meant to stay together and help each other in good times and bad. So it's also a good idea to try to figure out what the girl's family's like, because that's most likely her biggest influence into the person she is more than anything else. And the reason you're different is because your older brother took you out of the Tanuki crime syndicate and raised you here for half of your life with better people. And from all the marriages I've witnessed, when you marry someone, you're not just marrying the person, but marrying the person's family. I've heard as much from my mother. Good woman. And thank God my dad is spending life in prison with no parole for what he put people through. Now my mother has all his assets, which has a bad connotation here because of no-fault divorce in this state. But in Tanuki society, no-fault divorce doesn't exist. So there's a lot of less women Tanukis using divorce to enrich themselves, from what I've heard. If you want a divorce in Tanuki society, you need a real reason, like infidelity, abuse, neglect, cruelty, or your partner being a convicted felon like my dad. And thinking about it, no-fault divorce is generally something that makes me afraid to get married, because I can generally have a loving relationship with a potential wife at first, but then things suddenly have problems, and then she wants a divorce and can just take half my stuff I've worked hard for no reason. Yeah, that's not even taking in the children into account. I've met the children of divorced parents, and their lives are shattered all because of one parent decided to selfishly get a no-fault divorce. And I'm not talking about divorce for legitimate reasons like the ones you said. Heck, even Jesus himself said divorce is acceptable in cases of infidelity. But to destroy your own children's lives like that for something selfish is a special evil most deserving of hellfire. And then there's the fact that most of these issues can be avoided by figuring out the person during the dating period before you married. So I don't blame you for being worried about no-fault divorce in your future marriage, especially with how unfair family courts are to men, to the point where they are institutions of injustice. And this is probably going to sound sexist, but it's true. The father matters much more than to the development of the child after the first few years of life than the mother. And we have the data to back that up from both education and crime studies. But both parents with healthy relationships is still the best outcome by a long shot. So I'm not terribly worried about my sister's baby, knowing its father is a good man and a nine-tails and will probably discipline that child into becoming a mature adult. Anyway, our service is here. Do you want anything? Sonny looked at the waiter and said, I'll have a strawberry daiquiri, please. And I'll have a pina colada. The waiter wrote down and came back with their drinks. Then Zenko tapped the glasses with Sonny and said, "Cheers." Zenko and Sonny continued their little practice date as Zenko was getting buzzed, but not drunk. And after they were done, Zenko paid the bill and took Sonny back to the hotel room where they were staying at. But to their surprise, the heater didn't work, so Zenko left a notice to the hotel management to have the maintenance fix it. But the part needed to fix it wouldn't arrive for a couple of days, so management made a compromise and cut the price of the room in half. But then Zenko and Sonny started to get a little cold, with Zenko asking, "Are you comfortable if we share a bed? It's getting pretty cold, and I think we'll better keep each other warm if we share each other's body heat under the covers." Sonny thought of Zenko's lush fur and answered, "I'm comfortable with it." Sonny and Zenko then got under the sheets on the same bed as Zenko wrapped him with her 7 tails as the two began to snuggle up. Zenko said, "If you feel uncomfortable at all in this, please let me know and we'll stop." "You're fine. You're both fully clothed anyway, and I don't see how else you could warm this room up beside your kitsune bai, which might set the building on fire." Sonny felt his body pressed up against Zenko as he started to shiver a little bit, with Zenko being nice and warm. But with both their bodies under the sheets, they began to warm up as Sonny didn't feel the need to hold on to Zenko so tightly. And instead, Zenko just felt cozy, even if he knew he snuggled up with someone who was 800 years older than him, but was probably because he was cold and Zenko was slightly drunk. But then a thought came to Sonny's mind. Maybe Zenko was the right person for him. But how could she be? She couldn't have children with him, and she was centuries older. But she did love him in a very emotionally intimate way, that he felt like he could tell her his deepest, darkest secrets and she wouldn't judge him. And thinking about the thought, Sonny started to move from snuggling Zenko to keep warm and started cuddling with Zenko, asking, "Are you attracted to me or something?" Sonny looked embarrassed. Yes. Thank you. I was wondering why you started cuddling and caressing my tails. Just to make sure you never tell my sister about this. She'll be livid to find out I was snuggling with you, even though I'm kind of enjoying this little circumstance so long as this doesn't morph from affection into being something sexual. Because if it turns into something sexual, I'm not okay with that, and punching you in your balls, and it's going to really hurt. It's nothing sexual, it's just, I just really like you. Oh, so that's what this is about then. Hey, I wouldn't mind if we dated for real, because I really like you too. But if this is the relationship is for us, I'm asking for your sake you get a job, and I'll even help you get one. I also don't intend to keep secrets from you, so I'm just going to say it up front. I'm not a virgin, and that comes from my time as a former shrine priestess from the cult of Inari from centuries ago, remaining abstinent for centuries ever since I left the shrine priestess. So, if our relationship ever develops into something physical beyond our intimate platonic relationship, like being partners, I want you to know that about me and be able to make an informed decision about physical intimacy. I also don't have any exes that I can remember, nor do I have any children that you have to worry about. But for now, how about we just cuddle while it's cold, shall we? Even though Zenko revealed was slightly off-putting to Sonny with her high body count, he did appreciate that she was honest about that sort of thing, as it was reciprocal in her relationship and affable. Sonny had heard too many stories from classmates who had girlfriends that wanted their boyfriends to treat them like an idol, constantly give while only receiving her presence in return. And when they gave up on giving or couldn't give any more to their girlfriends would ungratefully dump them or emotionally abuse them to get what they wanted. And the fact that Zenko is honest and straightforward about the good and the bad and reciprocated what Sonny was doing made her all the more attractive despite her average yet cute appearance. There was also her very real and not faked empathy and interpersonal warmth that also made Sonny very attracted to her despite being a kitsune and he himself a tanuki. I mean, even if their dating relationship ever developed into anything serious, Sonny was just happy to have a true friend for once. Did you know this? A nod to a St. John Chrysostom homily. When Zenko mentions a Christian priest executive at Sonny's university worshipping Okami Inari through his greed, this is a little reference to one of St. John Chrysostom's homilies on the matter of idolatry. During the time of St. John Chrysostom, Roman paganism was phasing itself out of existence. So people were not worshipping idols nearly as much as, or making sacrifices to these images of pagan gods. However, the sin of idolatry in the Christian religion does not merely consist of worshipping images and making sacrifices to idols as if they were gods, but extends to anything that takes the place of God that is not God. As such, in one of John Chrysostom's homilies, he says that people whose lives revolve around their own lust, yet call themselves Christians, are not really Christians but worshippers of Aphrodite. And those people whose lives revolved around their own constant anger and wrath, yet call themselves Christians, are really worshippers of Ares. And for historical context, Aphrodite is not the goddess of love in Greco-Roman paganism, but of seduction, and in the myths is full of envy and regularly cheats on her spouse, where her punishment was to marry her spouse because he was ugly, and Aphrodite was incredibly vain. So, in a similar vein to John Chrysostom's homily, Zenko compares those Christians to worshippers of Inari, whom she used to be a priestess of centuries ago. Rich clergy suspicion. Rich clergy are generally people I am most suspicious of because I do not expect someone who is faithful to the teachings of the gospel to have and has committed his life to the service of his flock to be rich. However, I do not expect them to be impoverished either as an impoverished priest, if not a monk, nor financially irresponsible, is a sign that the assembly does not care about its priest or other economic factors are at play. However, if a priest or bishop is rich, that is a sign of corruption, that the treasure of the church is probably not being used for what it should be, and being stolen from the poor and from the hands of God. It is why I am in total agreement with St. John Chrysostom on the matter of total financial transparency of the churches in order to be a deterrent of such theft. As such, I find clergy who do not accept a salary but have their own jobs in the world as extras deserving of honor, because they are not required to say no to a salary from the church. And I am of the opinion that married clergy that have their own work in the world helps them be grounded with the people of their own community. As for a priest accepting a salary, given factors such as the amount of work a priest has to do and how many people he has to attend to, I have no problem with a priest accepting a salary within reasonable limits, especially if he is married and has a family like most Orthodox priests do. And it was the corruption of the clergy in the Catholic Church in the medieval period using their position for self-enrichment, which is why the Pope made the decision to not allow priests to be married as ecclesiastical discipline, but not dogma, in order to prevent generational wealth and the priesthood from becoming like a miniature fiefdom in the religious sphere. It also why Catholic priests, when ordained, take a solemn vow of poverty, which means they do not own anything that is their own, and all their stuff belongs to the church or is sold or given to other people, which is not true of Orthodox priests unless they are monks, and the monastic vow of poverty carrying over into the priesthood. However, even if Orthodox priests do not take a solemn vow of poverty, they are expected to live simply and not in excess.